Today on Get Paid, we got Pukar Hamal, the founder and CEO of SecurityPal AI. Now, I love this episode because he actually took the frustration out of all those security questionnaires that we have to fill in to even get started with an enterprise deal. And he turned that into a $105 million company that is now trusted by OpenAI, Figma, MongoDB, Airtable, and a bunch of others to accelerate their enterprise deal cycles. So Pukar has over 180 security analysts working full-time in Kathmandu, Nepal, helping him build what he calls Silicon Peaks. He got funding from Kraft before he wrote a single line of code, which is still blowing my mind. So everyone else is talking about service as software. You know, we coined that term with Pat Grady at Sequoia, but SecurityPal is truly service as software. We'll dig into why he believes that the future of enterprise software isn't just AI or humans, but the perfect blend of both to deliver the service as software. Now, we'll talk about building businesses while eating discount ramen as a founder, and why customer assurance, meaning getting the right result, might be the most important category you have never heard of. Now, Pukar, let's get paid. Pukar, so good to have you. Thanks again for coming out to the Get Paid podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I am dying to know your story, and I think our listeners are too, because you are profitable. You raise one round of capital and that's it. You're growing nicely. You're developing early network effects between your buyers and your sellers. So I want to understand, like, what will you tell the younger Pukar if you were to start again to accelerate how you got paid?
Man, I would say, brace yourself is probably like the biggest advice that I would give. It's been a long journey. I've been at it now for 5 years. I started the company back in March of 2020.
Let's back up a little bit. So let's start with like you starting in tech. So what's your start in tech, and then
So my start in tech, first of all, I didn't know much about tech when I was growing up. I grew up in New York City. I'm originally from Nepal, so I'm a refugee to the U.S. Moved to the U.S. To New York City when I was 7 years old. Growing up in Nepal, I grew up in far western Nepal, so we had no indoor plumbing, no electricity.
Wow.
So imagine at 7 years old being dropped in New York City. It's sort of like experiencing 150 years of technological change.
Right.
And
Right.
in the first 7 years of your life. And then from there, I got really lucky. I lived there for 10 years, public school kid, but then ended up, winning a lottery ticket to get into Stanford. And then that's when I learned about tech.
Damn.
So, I went to Stanford for undergrad, and then that's where I sort of learned about Silicon Valley and all these things. I had a couple of startups there with friends. I worked at a family foundation of Mark Andreessen. They're very generous philanthropists. But then after that, I ended up at this company called TalentBen as an SDR.
Oh, wow.
And what I wanted to know was, my thesis was...
With my man Pete.
Yes, exactly, with Pete Kazanji. Shout out to Pete. My thesis was the cost of building technology is going down rapidly.
Yep.
So where's the next bottleneck? And for me, it fundamentally was at distribution, right? So it's if it's easy to build stuff, everyone's going to build stuff.
Yep.
How do you actually get your biggest companies to use it? So I wanted to learn about sales and go to market.
Yeah.
And all that. And so I started as an SDR.
SDR is the best way to learn.
It's literally the best way to learn because it forces you to get over all of your fears.
100%. It's where the rubber meets the road. You got to talk to strangers all day.
Exactly. So was making $130 a day. Within 6 months, I was promoted to account executive, and then I learned about sales operations and stuff like that. And then I was deciding between continuing down a more senior enterprise AE path at a firm, or at another firm, or going to an early stage company as a co-founder. And so I decided to do the latter because I wanted to accelerate my learnings. And it was a little known company called Teamable. It was a referral recruiting company back in the Valley. We had customers we helped Uber recruit their early self-driving car engineers in Pittsburgh. We used to work with Lyft, Allstate, a bunch of these companies. But one of the biggest lessons for me was, I hope the company get to a 3 million in ARR pretty fast within 18 months.
Right.
But scaling before product market fit is the worst idea ever, because what happens is you sell a bunch of companies on this vision. They buy your vision, they buy your path to execution, but inevitably in the path from demo to production, right, there's a lot of things to be sorted out. And so you get hit with a bunch of churn and issues and stuff like that. And so that was a big lesson. And from there, I and that's actually where I also ran into this issue of
so it's not all about distribution then, right?
Well, yeah. So
or was it?
Well, I think it's about the right type of distribution, right? So I thought okay, you just need to sell it. No, you actually need to renew it.
Right.
It's
I like
right.
that. I like that.
The people, they always think about, like, there's a very critical component in ARR. Everybody focuses on the revenue,
Yeah.
but very few people think about the recurring.
Interesting.
Right? So it's like it has to recur, otherwise it's not really like
Right.
ARR.
Right.
And so that was like the big painful lesson there.
Interesting. So fast forward to SecurityPal now. So what is the lesson that you brought in so that you got paid faster at SecurityPal from the previous industry?
My whole point at SecurityPal was I wanted to be paid as soon as possible because
Love it.
I did not want to raise venture capital, right? So the lesson learned from the previous company was, hey, don't raise VC until you're like really sure, until you have your sort of direction dialed in, right? Go figure out how to actually like get your customers to pay you. So the way I knew I had product market fit was I had run into this problem at my previous company, right? We were like super close to closing this big enterprise deal, Manny. Like it was going to change the company history. Literally at the last minute, we thought we were getting a DocuSign. Instead, we got a 200-page security questionnaire. Complete, like you don't understand. You don't understand how bad it was. Okay, like we were like ready to pop champagne bottles. But
Yeah. Oh, I did. I've been there.
exactly. And so
Oh, you want to makes me want to drink a little bit.
and so, we got hit with the security guard, and we're just like, what is this? It's like hieroglyphics, like, and so, do I have barbed wire around my data center? We're like these couple of guys like in like San Francisco trying to figure this out.
Dude, I so remember I used to get this questionnaire. So like, who has access to a data center? What data center?
Yeah,
Like what are we? Like, is it 1980s? Like, but there's no data center. So
exactly.
everything is in the cloud. It's so funny because like the secure questionnaire
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, and like, and it was like your anti-slavery policy, and I'm just like, this is getting crazy.
Exactly. We're just having child labor.
Yeah, exactly. And so we, that was a really painful experience. Right? You don't forget that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wait, so we got to figure this out. And actually, one thing that was really interesting was GDPR had just hit like May of 2018. And so before GDPR, like, and all these regulations, we weren't seeing a lot of these questionnaires. Like I would close an enterprise deal in like 6 months, like a year down the line, somebody from IT would ask us a couple of questions, right? That was it.
Yeah.
But like after that, we kept seeing like more and more, even before the deal, like obviously closer to signature, but before the signature, well before the deal. And my like fundamental realization was if companies have to fill out a bunch of paperwork before they close a deal,
Yeah.
and they don't have the resources to do that,
Yeah.
then all the big companies are going to win because they do have the resources.
Right.
So it's a barrier to entry. It's going to create a ton of deadweight loss in society. And so and I'm like a zealot around American innovation, right? I think there should be more startups.
Right.
Like America's been so good to me. Innovation's been so good to me. Like
Uh-huh.
we should allow more startups to thrive and flourish. And the best product should win, not the product that fills out paperwork
Right.
with the most amount of lawyers or like whoever regulators and
Yeah,
stuff like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was my fundamental thesis. And so in terms of like that big idea for how I got paid for SecurityPal was I took this idea, I went to a bunch of companies, sort of like workshopping it. And one of them said, hey, listen, can I just send you the questionnaire? And I was like, yeah, sure. Just send it to me. Like, why don't you just fill it out and give me like an SLA? And I was like, done.
That's awesome.
So I hadn't even incorporated the company, Manny. And the person was like, send me an invoice. I'm like, what is an invoice? 'Cause like I'm still trying to figure for what? Yeah, for what? So I was like, wait, so like I have to figure out an invoice. Wait, I got to incorporate my company. I went on like Stripe, Atlas, incorporated the company. So I had a company that wanted an invoice before I'd even incorporated. That's product market fit,
That's awesome.
right? And so that's getting paid.
That's problem market fit.
Yeah, exactly. Problem market fit, exactly. And so I ended up.
You got paid. I love that.
Yes, exactly. I had somebody willing to pay me. I got paid. It was $4,000 contract, and then they, and then they referred me to Airtable, Figma, a bunch of other companies.
Nice.
And then word started getting out about like, hey, there's this guy that'll stay up all night to fill out your questionnaire. By the way,
I love that.
it was really funny because like that's not what I intended to happen. But I think like in the beginning I was like, I don't want to put any code into production until I figure out the customer experience.
Mm.
And I had an early customer at Drift who like Drift is a great early customer of ours, and they sent me a questionnaire late at night. And by the way, I had a day job, so I was staying up all night to fill these out for our customers.
Wow.
Okay, so I had a day job as a consultant because I needed to pay rent in San Francisco and buy my ramen and stuff.
Yeah.
So at night I'd fill out these questionnaires, and I had a customer send me a questionnaire, be like, Pukar, I need this back tomorrow morning, East Coast time. I'm on the West Coast, right? Stay up all night. I fill it out. I send it at 3 a.m., 6 a.m. over there. They got the deal done. And I was like, wait, there's something here.
Yeah.
Because this commercial transaction, which would have taken weeks,
Yeah.
just got truncated down to days, hours. That's accelerates GDP.
That's amazing. Yep.
Right? And so that's when I was like, wow, I'm onto something. So then I just, and that was like the first sort of like agentic experience. So I had this like, I called myself the questionnaire concierge. So I didn't say, hey, it's me filling out the questionnaires. You know, if people really asked, I'd say it. But like, I was like, it's your questionnaire concierge doing it. You know, why don't you, when you get a questionnaire, why don't you just send it to the concierge? Your concierge is going to fill it out. It's going to send you all the notes of any gaps, and then you send it back to the customer. And then people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's a cool workflow. Turns out now we call these agents, right? You'd send the work order to an agent. The agent thinks through it, processes it, and sends it to you or sends it to whoever else. And so I didn't realize this, but like we had almost accidentally built this first sort of like agentic workflow.
Yeah.
Because my thesis back then was there were other companies solving this problem, but most software at that time was like a bunch of clickware. It was like click, 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 click. You know, and I think I kind of shared this with you. One of the things about Outreach, the company that you built, which I loved, was it automated so much stuff that CRMs forced you to click through, right?
Yeah.
It probably reduced the number of clicks and stuff in software by like 10x.
Yep.
Right? And how do you continue to remove clicks? How do you continue to remove like the human from navigating software to actually making like key decisions?
Right.
And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, but that's fundamentally what it was.
You know, it's really interesting because we were fully conscious that the time spent between you identifying an account you want to get into in a lead and getting that meeting with the lead, ideally is zero. You see what I mean? Like how many emails, how many calls you want to make? None. You see what I mean? Like you just want to get in and talk to this person.
Right.
So like the value of outreach was actually trying to reduce the number of steps it took you to get there. Not giving you 15 steps, but it's trying to figure out how to make the least amount of steps. It's the same thing with security reviews, right? Like you don't want to click a ton. You just want the whole thing done.
Yes.
So I love that you jump to the end. So how do you charge for that? Like it's because at the end of the day, you're just making the problem go away. That's amazing.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you know, we didn't even have software. Manny, like I was building this off of like Google Sheets and Airtable, dashboards. And so people would be like, oh, like, yeah, when are we going to get a login to our software? I was like, no, no, literally.
Why do you need login?
Yeah. I was like, why do you need to log in? You have a form that needs to be filled out and you want it filled out. So just give it to me and I'll fill it out. Like that was so literally as simple as that. You don't need login. I'll give you analytics on how many you did and stuff like that. And so, you know, in the beginning, I would just like do all that on the back end. For people, people are like, wow, how are you doing this? Like, do you have AI and stuff like that? Sure. Like, you know, like,
exactly.
You know, actual intelligence.
So what AI?
Exactly. And so, but people love the workflow. And in terms of like pricing, what I realized is, you know, pricing can be a real advantage against incumbents, right? Because you've got folks pricing based on users and they need lots of people to like manage, they need to charge a lot to sort of like cover their sales, marketing, all these other costs. I was like, I'm just going to charge based on usage because all I really needed at that time was I just needed personal runway. I needed to be able to pay rent. I needed to be able to buy food. I needed to be able to support the early team that I had like built of sort of like additional like, security analysts. And that was pretty much it. And so that's when, we decided like, hey, like, yeah, just how many are you going to do? How many questionnaires do you think you're going to look at your pipeline? Right? Oh, you've got 100 deals like closing this quarter. You think about 50 of them are going to give you really gnarly questionnaires?
It's like asking how big are your dreams?
Yes.
You're going to pay me on that.
Yeah, exactly.
How much money you want to make this quarter? That's you.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just charge based on that. We're like, hey, it's going to take you like this many hours and stuff like that, all this brain damage to do it. And we're going to charge you a fraction of that. And and single and allow us to run the.
So do you ever get into, so clearly some questionnaires are longer than others, right? Clearly, some deals are bigger than others.
Yeah.
Do you ever get into, pricing based on the willingness to pay, like how big that deal was?
Yeah.
Or the urgency, kind of like a FedEx. You want it overnight? Fine, I will cost you. You know what I mean?
What I've seen over time is I think like in some fundamental way, we're trying to approach some ideal pricing based on complexity, and we haven't quite gotten there yet. So we're using all these proxies, right?
Yeah.
Users, right? Oh, like. The more users, the bigger the company, the more complexity, right?
Yeah.
Or usage. The more usage, there's going to be more data, more system, more integrations. And so like we're going to be able to charge more. But I've fundamentally anchored our pricing based on complexity. It's like how complex is your problem as it relates to like security reviews and security questionnaires.
Right.
You've got tons of enterprises you're selling into. You've got tons of products. That's really complex. So there is this sort of like price per security review, but then it's also about price per how many products you're distributing into the market,
Yeah.
and priced based on, okay, like you have a completely different data center deployment in APAC and EMEA versus like in the US, so that changes a set of your answers and
Right.
stuff like that.
Right.
So we're trying to approximate this idea of complexity.
Yeah.
So it does require us to be like, hey, okay, like there's a little bit more complexity here that's going to require some more work,
Right.
and we're going to charge, a premium on that. And so we're trying to obviously like approximate those things. But yeah, I mean, what we realized very quickly was there was a pretty reasonable median that was the size of a questionnaire. It
Yeah.
basically landed somewhere like thousands of questions, somewhere like tens of questions, but generally sort of the mean median point was around like 110, 120 questions, right?
Interesting.
That's obviously increasing over time, which is a little annoying
Yeah.
based on all these new regulations, but like it hovers around like that range.
So, will you ever think about the size of the customer? So you're doing this questionnaire to land. So you could be landing, mid-sized startup in the Bay, or you could be doing this questionnaire to land, I don't know, General Mills. And clearly, one is much larger opportunity for you than the other. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you price based on the sensitivity of the customer's
So
pocket?
yeah, so the way that we handle that right now is what we like to say is this a questionnaire that's simple enough? Usually what ends up happening if you're landing a smaller company, the questionnaire itself is simple.
Yeah.
If you're trying to land a larger company, the questionnaire itself is like a little bit more complex for those like larger companies
Yeah.
because they have more bespoke custom needs.
Right.
And so what we have now in our application now, we actually do have an app today, and there's a lot of AI in it, and but we like waited to build that. So what we say, listen, if it's simple, just put it through our AI. Our AI is really good. We process 2.5 million questions. We pre-answer a lot of questions before you, like during onboarding and stuff like that. So like our AI is going to be pretty good at giving you like a first pass that's 80% there,
Right.
and then you could spend like a few minutes cleaning that up and sending it back. It's much more efficient than sending it to our concierge and
Right.
rating,
Right.
right? And so that we've sort of we're still trying to figure this out, but that is like, free up to a certain point and then, some marginal like small dollar amount, right?
Yeah.
But when it's General Mills, when it's like these other companies, then that you're going to want concierge, you're going to want that white glove
Oh,
treatment
interesting.
on that, where you're going to want additional review.
Right.
And what our customers really love about our company is not, we don't say AI is going to solve all problems, by the way. By the way, if anybody's listening to this, like, AGI is not around the corner. Like this is just like not going to happen in 2027 or whatever these estimates are. It's probably going to take a decade, right? The more we learn about like AI and like the way it works, it turns out it's like really hard to like train like AI. It's really hard to like load it with context over and over again. And then even then, you're not really sure like what ways, what it's going to value, what it's going to overweight and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's what we're learning as we solve this problem. And so we actually have a human army, right? I built this team in Kathmandu, along with like my business partner there, this wonderful gentleman named Lakshman. We have this like team, this army of like 200 plus folks that actually on the concierge side review. We annotate, we flag, and so there's an AI system that we built on the internal side, but
Hmm.
they actually review the quality. So for the General Mills questionnaire, we're taking it through like a SEAL Team 6 type of review,
Oh, wow.
right, to make sure that it's accurate and like up to snuff. Because what's going to happen is the bigger the company, the more people they have on the other end reviewing the stuff.
Right.
The smaller the company, they don't have the resources
Right.
on the other end to actually review the questionnaire. They just want it to get done.
Right.
But the larger enterprises, they have a lot more data at stake. They have a lot more teams on the other side that are gonna put you through
Right.
through the ringer. And like you gotta be able to sort of like meet that
Interesting.
with your own army, so to
Interesting.
speak. And we provide companies that ability.
So what prevents? So what keeps you up at night is the next YC startup that comes up with the next good idea on how to wrangle an LLM to do exactly what you said.
I'm not really worried about any of the LLM like YC startups. I think like the thing that keeps me up at night fundamentally, it used to be a lot more before we were actually like
Yeah.
profitable and stuff like that. So I think that's like God, that
Not
stress is
dying.
like
Exactly.
that stress has gone down. But um the thing that keeps me up at night is like we've got this big mission, right? Like we're here, our team is like hellbent on how do we make sure that the most important companies, like companies like Paid and all these incredible startups that are coming up, how can we make sure that there's no bottlenecks to them and their growth
Yeah.
around this paperwork? So it's like I don't think we're like moving fast enough to
Mm.
meet the sheer amount of like there's all these regulations coming down the line, right? Like every single, there's GDPR. Well, guess what? There's 170 countries working on their own version of GDPR,
Wow.
right? Every state, by the way, we've got this wonderful system in the U.S. called federalism, which means they're not going to listen to what the U.S. government says. They're going to want to do their own thing. So Texas is not going to be okay with California's privacy regulations.
Right.
Right?
They're going to come up with their own.
Yeah, they're going to want their own. New York's going to want their own. Every state wants their own regulation. So you have all these sort of like regulations and complexities coming, and they're going to impact the commercial transaction on both the buy and sell side.
Interesting.
And the thing that like fundamentally that like keeps me up at night, and I think as a founder, the things that keep you up at night scare you and motivate you at the same time. Right. So yeah, it's like scary, for our customers, but it's also incredibly motivating to be like, hey, we got to go figure this out. We got to tackle this. So I think a lot of this comes down to like, are we growing fast enough? Are we actually like building our operations in a resilient enough manner? Are we truly available for all the customers in these different regions that we have, whether it's Europe, EMEA? With some of these customers that we have these large enterprise deals with, we need to have crazy uptimes and availability, especially when emergency strikes and they need a deal done like yesterday. They need a questionnaire done within the hour. We've done that before.
Wow.
Right? You need a questionnaire done in an hour because it's the end of the quarter. Don't worry about it.
100%.
Hand it to SecurityPal. Yeah.
So again, do you charge for that speed service?
Yes.
Kind of like FedEx?
Yes, exactly.
So overnight is way more expensive.
Yeah.
Than,
so
within the week.
Exactly. So I would say like the vectors for pricing for us are a quantity of work, and then the sort of like SLA. Right. So do you want it like done same day? So you have same day turnaround on these, right?
Yeah.
Or are you okay with like 3-5 days or something like that? And then complexity, which is approximated as a function of how many different product lines you have.
Right.
And then, what are your sort of like deployment models? And that's something that we work with on the pricing side.
That's awesome. So as you're rolling out agents, do you foresee another tier of offering versus like agentic only? It may have some mistakes, but that's your agent, and then the human reviewed, and then all these other vectors. Or
yeah. I mean, this is like a big topic of conversation right now, which is quality is such an important bar that we hold ourselves to. Like I really, what we really wanted to do at the beginning was sort of position our concierge as kind of like the Amex Black Card, right? When you call like Amex Platinum, I don't have the Black Card, by the way, but like my friends have told me.
But if you were,
my friends that have it told me, you call them, you get a real person, and like they're hell bent on figuring out how to help you solve it.
100%,
right? And like that premium experience, it's like hard to really like get that through like AI agents. Our customers really love that, right? Like we're there for them exactly when they need us to be. We think a lot of this sort of like all the low end of the AI stuff is going to get eaten away. People might even like build some agentic flows themselves and stuff like that. But where we are trying to figure out like agents is there a way for us to marry the proprietary data that we have access to, which is these millions of questions, right? And the context that we have of like what each enterprise is looking for, and almost build like unique agents for each company based on the specific customer.
Right.
So like imagine if there was a get paid security agent just for General Mills,
Yeah.
just for the type of deployment
Yeah.
that you guys have with that enterprise, right?
Yeah.
With that has full context. That I think is the holy grail, because what you ideally want is you want each customer that you have who has their own bespoke needs to be treated and met where they want to be met, right? And not these like generic responses and stuff like that. Like I think people are willing to pay in this era for personalization. Enterprises are too.
100%.
And so like, I think that hyper-personalization is where we're going to go towards, not just for the individual, but hyper-personalization and deployments for those enterprises.
Right.
And they're going to be willing to pay more, because if you do hyper-personalize, if you do stitch your that sort of like data pipeline together in exactly the right ways, there's like 10x, 100x more value to be created and automation to be delivered.
100%. So it's funny because there is this whole moniker of like service as software. And that is exactly what you are.
We call ourselves that. We call ourselves SaaS. We say we're service as a software. We're not software as a service.
That's amazing. What is the intersection between what you're doing and somebody like Vanta or the SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001, et cetera, that are trying to circumvent the whole thing by saying, look, I'll get you certified and that's all you need?
Yeah, I think Vanta's great. I think all these SOC 2 companies that have like come out over the last decade, I think they've done a really good job of removing the information asymmetry in the market. Right? Like there was a certain information asymmetry that existed. Right? And People tried to scare you with a bunch of these acronyms. By the way, this industry loves acronyms like ISO,
Yeah.
SOC. They tell all this.
Yeah.
Just like, trust me, I know more acronyms
The
than.
longer the better.
Yeah, the longer the better. Exactly. Now, the challenge with the certifications was supposed to be a proxy for trust,
Right.
right? The challenge is if everybody gets certified, uh, because it's so easy to certify, and there's all these firms that'll just rubber stamp like SOC 2s,
Yeah.
then it doesn't remove that like fundamental need for trust, right?
Right.
It was a trust barrier because before it was difficult to get a SOC 2,
Right.
right? There's almost like this, there was almost this cost to getting this, which became the proxy for trust. But if the cost has gone down, what is the cost shifting to?
Right.
And so that's the way you ought to really think about it. So SOC 2, listen, every company should get it. We're happy to introduce you to all the partners. If you want to reach out to us and get a discount, like we're happy to connect you with all these different SOC 2 providers. But the fundamental need for trust and the fundamental understanding of the way that enterprises work, which is like they want to see that you did something difficult and hard to get that very few other companies, and that I think is going to continue to shift.
So would you say that then in the world in which everybody has a SOC 2 and everybody has an ISO, you are even more relevant because people will have very bespoke questions just for you?
Exactly. And companies are going to have bespoke questions, right? And what we're noticing right now is the types of questions changing. There are a lot more questionnaires now with AI related questions because there's a new innovation that just happened, right? AI. And so a lot of companies want to know how you're using LLMs. How are you storing the data, right? It's interesting because about 18 months ago, it was a lot about like LLMs and stuff like that. Today, you're starting to see stuff about agents,
Interesting.
right? And so like the questions are not going to change, right? Because the technology might change and stuff like that, but the questions are essentially a way for them to understand, okay, fundamentally, what is the need that enterprises have? They want to know, is my data going to be good in your hands?
Right.
And all of these questions are a different way of asking, hey, can I trust you?
Yeah.
Is my data going to be good, safe with you, right?
Yeah.
And like that question it's not just going to be asked once,
Mm.
right? Because we're in many ways living in a zero trust world, right? It's actually like not trust but verify. It's like don't trust at all, always verify.
Right.
And so you're always verifying that question, right?
Interesting.
You're always saying like, hey, can I trust you with my data? Can I trust you with my data? And like that's gonna.
So what have you seen in the last year or so where everybody's using LLMs, agents are everywhere? Like what has changed in the questionnaires that are stumping people maybe or delaying deals perhaps that are more AI related?
I think the biggest challenge that a lot of companies have right now is the discrepancy between what they want to say from a marketing standpoint and what they want to say from an architecture standpoint to the same company.
Yeah.
So your marketing team might have a fancy website being like, oh, we have AI agents and all this other stuff, right? But if a security team sees that of the company that you're selling to, they're going to be like, hey, you say you don't use any AI, but your website says all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, so you have this weird dance that's happening where companies will say they're super AI forward,
Mhm.
and it's maybe 1 to 2 standard deviations above what the truth is,
Right.
in terms of what they're actually doing, because you gotta be an AI company now.
Right.
And then there's the sort of like security conversation that needs to happen where it's like, actually, like we use one LLM to the side, and like we cordon off your data, and it's like we're only hitting the API, we have an enterprise license with them, and all your data is deleted. And so there is this like interesting dance that I see happening where like companies are struggling to figure out, how do we talk about the fact that we're AI forward,
Right.
but how do we also communicate to customers that are incredibly sensitive from an enterprise risk standpoint that their data is safe. The controls that we've implemented from an AI standpoint are actually secure. And you're actually seeing the rise of many companies. What they're doing now is they're saying, listen, you don't have to use our OpenAI key, API key. You can use your own, right?
Right. I see that everywhere.
And you can deploy for enterprises, it's like, you know what, we're happy to use your sort of like locally deployed Azure instance deployed version
Interesting.
of the LLM rather than ours, right? Because what we want to do is we want to fundamentally provide you the value
Yeah.
and unlock the intelligence. But companies are really sensitive about that data angle. So I think there's a messaging discrepancy
Interesting.
right now, and then there's also this of like, how do we actually like figure out how to tell companies, how do we figure out from a product architecture standpoint that they will ultimately have control over this? And there's different ways to do that.
So for the startups listening to us, like what is the one thing they should go do right now to unlock enterprise agreements that they're not doing in your mind?
So I think the biggest unlock that they can do, and by the way, one of the things we do is I'm big on providing startups free stuff, like not charging them
Got
for
it.
things that you could
So go to
free.
SecurityPal.
Yeah, so we one of the things, yeah, exactly. Go to
Get a lot of free stuff.
exactly, like
Still.
go to securitypal.com, securitypalhq.com. What we offer companies is a free trust center, right? It's a easy way for you
Mhm.
to, in a really nice and clean way, present your security credentials. One of the first things that a company looks for when they go to a company's website and stuff like that is they still want to see you have the SOC 2 logo. They still want to see that you have like all these controls. They want to know that you're using words that they understand,
Yeah.
and you sort of have to use that same vernacular,
Yeah. Yeah.
so to speak. And so, oh, okay, you know those words, cool. You must be
Yeah,
legit,
yeah.
right? And so you got to play that game a little bit. But so we provide a free trust center, free page where you can like put all that stuff. And then beyond that, I think it's really important to have like really well polished material, white papers and stuff like that, because eventually it's going to make its way up to, an AI committee or something like that. And they're only gonna look at the company's logo,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're gonna go to the website and stuff like that. A lot of these decisions are made very quickly in people's minds, whether they should trust a company or not.
Whether you're a joker or you're for real.
Exactly. And
Got
so like being extremely polished in the way you communicate and stuff like that. Those are like I think the most important things. That's like the one thing that I
Interesting.
could say right off the bat. Obviously there's so much more investments that you can make to sort of like demonstrate assurance, right? We like to say customer assurance. Like that's one of the categories that we're trying to really champion, which is if you're trying to demonstrate and deliver assurance to your customers, it's not going to be enough to just do it once. You're going to have to do it continuously.
Got it. This whole, hack that you did of like providing the service first and then putting the software later. How far did that get you? How big were you when you start layering software on top of it? And like
We
what were
were
your
well,
for somebody to take away? Like what should they be doing to grow faster?
we were well over a million, almost a 2 million before we even like built any software.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you raised from Kraft at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they
Exactly.
literally just bank on you guys as a good
Yeah. I
idea
think
to
like
leave them.
for them, they saw the early traction we had the logos with zero sort of outside funding. And I think like, personally, I'm just like really passionate about this innovation idea. I'm really passionate about what we're doing in Kathmandu, like sort of building Silicon Peaks and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so I think for startups and founders, what I would fundamentally say is like, you'd be surprised at what you can do if you actually really believe in it, right? If you're just doing it for the money,
Yeah.
and if you're trying to be cool in front of friends and get rich quick or something like that,
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not the right guy to ask, right?
Yeah.
There might be another formula that I'm not familiar with. I know this formula,
Yeah.
and the formula that I know is if you really believe in something, you're really passionate about it,
Yeah.
and you want a certain version of the world to be created, and you will literally eat ramen and like work out of the corner of your apartment because there's a global pandemic going on because that's and like you can't step out of the house, you just have to fill out questionnaires. If you're willing to like grind that, in that manner because
Yeah.
you're passionate about the version of the world that you want to
Yeah.
create, you don't need to raise capital. You just need one customer to believe in you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you don't need to like deliver for that customer the perfect version of the product. You just need to deliver value,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And you
100%.
need to get that customer to say that you've delivered them value. You need to get that customer, you got to get paid.
Right.
If you're not getting paid,
That's right. That's right.
right,
100%.
then there's nothing real. But by the way, like if you're not getting paid, it doesn't exist.
Right.
Like it's just basically like feel good, conversations that are happening. Yeah.
So that one last thing on this. So you got to deliver the value. How do you get paid for the value? Like I said, how do you price the value that you're collecting? And what will you be your advice for those out there trying to deliver value?
The biggest piece of advice from a pricing standpoint that I can give anybody is like your pricing is going to change. Forget about perfecting it today, right? It's going to evolve over time.
Right.
But what you want to do is you want to talk to experts that have seen every version of it,
Mm.
right? Folks like you, right?
Yeah.
You guys have probably seen every different type of pricing model that's being tested out there right now,
Yeah.
right? And so talking to folks that understand pricing and what are the vectors of pricing, right?
Mhm.
And there's always going to be trade-offs. So what I always say in terms of pricing is figure out what you can charge that customer to get you to that next stage. That's all you should really be thinking about at the beginning, right? All I wanted to do at the beginning when I was a startup was I wanted to get paid so I could run a business and not like end up on the streets or whatever, right? I just wanted to make sure my business was alive
That's
and
awesome.
that I could pay for like the fundamental costs.
That's awesome.
And then you'll figure it out. There's millions of companies out there. There's millions of different types of pricing. You don't need to perfect your pricing model from day one. But what you can do is you can definitely talk to experts like you guys, I think like the fundamental thing to optimize for is like, can I charge enough to operate.
Right.
That's all you really need to think about at like the earliest of stages.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So good to see you, man. Thanks again for coming out.